You know, if you knew Stu Scott, you would know what fun is, what love is, what joy is. What I didn't know before we started the Stu Scott Funds was his wonderful daughters, Sydney and Taylor. Taylor is a filmmaker who has many short films to her credit already. Sydney is a student athlete at Columbia. And these two young women are not only bright and beautiful, they really get what it means to change the world. And they have been remarkable spokespeople for the work that we're doing in the Stu Scott Cancer Fund. So it is now my pleasure to introduce you to Taylor and Sydney Scott. Good morning.
Thank you, Susan, so much for having us and for sharing our Dear World video that tells part of our story. Telling stories was incredibly important to my father, and I think that it is the most important thing to me as a result. The impression and feeling of unfairness that early loss brings is one that lingers with what feels like a half-life of eternity. It's the type of pain that makes you wonder, what did I do to deserve the loss of the person who means the most to me, who supports me the most? Time and experience have shown me that this is not the whole picture, though. I'm certainly not alone in my experience, and what I have gained over the time is a redesigned appreciation for the 7 years that I got to spend with my father after his initial diagnosis. He was sick from the time that I was 12, and he passed when I was 19. But his resilience and determination to participate in as many clinical trials as would have him, as well as his desire to leave this earth with more research, knowledge, and hope for the people who would come up and have the same struggles behind him, those are the things that I look to carry forward. It's like Mr. Valbano said, it may not save my life, but it might save my child's life, and it might save your child's life. I think that now is an incredibly important time to look toward making sure there is equity and justice in the seeds we plant for the future. And I look to emulate this pay it forward mentality. It's the reason I'm so honored to really be a part of this. And I'm so inspired by the work done for and by the V Foundation, and especially the work done for my father's Cancer Memorial Research Fund. Because to me, the efforts speak to a real concept of universal human kinship that Professor English and Africana Studies Professor Christina Sharp speaks to in an essay she wrote for the New Inquiry. Now, bear with me, it might seem a little off topic, but when we read some of her work in college, what I really got from it and what really resonated for me in this particular anthropology course was her assessment that kinship instrumentally has the power to make and unmake persons and families, to assign human beings value in and of themselves. I think that the work being done is really reparative and groundbreaking and original. And it extends the ties that we feel to others around us who might not live exactly the way we do or where we live. I think it helps rend the pattern of the kinship narrative, or in other words, it uses an understanding of human radical sameness, a universal radical sameness, to extend the boundaries of kinship, care, and protection to those we might not immediately see as ourselves. This idea would become a motif for a short movie I created with the over-the-top help of my family and friends. It originated from a desire to show my father and his siblings and his family back together, because again, there's a family vibe here. It's what we care about. It's what we prioritize most. What it really became was an exercise in trying to capture the residual feelings of nostalgia, adventure, culture, and support that permeates our American experience in hopes of showing these universalities. It was supposed to be for everyone who has spent a summer playing football in their yard, an endless summer, anyone who's fought with their siblings, anyone who has coveted a $6 million man toy at the toy store. I think the link is being attached, so if it's something that you want to check out, certainly do so. But it really was to send the message of the family vibe and the family importance of this organization. I truly can't express my gratitude or hope from the work being done by researchers, scholars, donors in the organization. It reifies for me the acknowledgement that what happens in Black communities and any minority community is a reflection of our societal values. And in addressing the issues of our most vulnerable, we build a world where we give value and cherish the time any given family has together because we're all very similar. So this is a fight for all of us. I'd like to pass it on to my sister now.
Yeah, thank you. Honestly, Taylor, thank you so much for saying that. It was really special just to be able to hear those words from you, even though I know that this is something that we've talked about. It was really, really special to be able to hear you say that. Um, for me, when I reflect about my dad, the thing that still today is the most poignant thing is something that is so simple. And it's just that he loved being a dad, like more than anything. He loved being a dad, especially to daughters, and so whether that took the form of tormenting and terrorizing every and any male friend, or, letting me paint his nails and wearing that proudly to work, um, it was something that was just so inestimably special to him. And I think that the most important way that came into play was the fact that the value he placed on my ideas and my opinions, even when he disagreed with them, was grounded in an inherent respect and value for me as a person. And so because of that, I grew up always knowing the value of my voice and the value of me as a person and the strength of my voice unequivocally. And that is the most powerful thing that my dad ever gave me. And of course, being a father to a little Black girl, it is only so long that you can shield her from that insidious truth. And it's that the world is not going to see me as inherently valuable, and with that inherent respect. Um, so 9 months ago, I was hurdling. I'm on the track team at Columbia, and I was hurdling, and I landed wrong. And I tore my ACL, PCL, LCL. I broke some bone. I tore my hamstring, shattered my kneecap. So I'm sitting there after surgery, and I'm lying in the hospital bed in the worst physical pain I had ever experienced in my entire life. Tears streaming down my face. I'm begging for pain medication. And the nurse on duty, sort of calmly looks at me. She looks me up and down and she says, "I think she's fine." And so, of course, my mother called my surgeon personally on her phone, had him come down to the post-op floor, and he took one look at what was going on and demanded to know why I had been denied pain medication. And for the millionth time in my life, what made all the difference was that there was someone there, in this case my mother, who was unwavering about my inherent value to her, and by extension, the people around us. And so that story is literally just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to navigating the healthcare system as a Black person. And my experience doesn't even come close to the gravity and the relentlessness of cancer. So, having heard that little anecdote, what does my individual experiences with my dad and with injuries have to do with what we're talking about here today? This past year, I was applying to a leadership position at a club at my school, and one of the questions on the application stood out to me. It said, "How have you taken advantage of opportunities in the past?" And that's a simple enough question, but for some reason it really resonated with me, because what it meant to me was, what have you done with the things that you have been given? And I had to look at myself and say, not enough, because cancer took my father away. He would never see me graduate high school, much less college. He wasn't there to be the only one to reciprocate my morbid humor after I'd injured my leg. And as sad as it is, that list goes on into perpetuity. But he did leave behind his love, and he left behind his drive and his fight. And when I think about it, there are so many other things that I have been given. For example, he developed a relationship with an absolutely incredible organization that is striving literally tirelessly to make sure that my reality is different from the one of the little girl coming after me. And an organization that has pursued and demonstrated not lip service, but genuine, tangible change in the fight for racial equality, and more specifically, the most resolute commitment to closing the gap in healthcare disparities for communities of color that I have seen. And that has been what is so incredible about today, is to listen and know where that funding is going, and to know what that research is propagating is the most incredible knowledge that I can have. And so lastly, and most importantly, he instilled in me again that value in myself and in my voice. And with all of those things, I have no right to not do enough. And that's why I consider it an honor and a privilege to be able to participate in a meaningful way to the V Foundation. And I mean it that a meaningful way can mean a lot of different things. I remember this past year, my sister and I attended a panel event at ESPN. And so on one side of me is the president of the V Foundation. And on the other side, or technically up on a screen, was a grant recipient. And so we have the two powerhouses in the room, and I'm 20 years old and I have one functioning leg. And I'm thinking there's probably not a lot that I'm going to be able to contribute. I feel a little that way today. But I just spoke to what I knew, which was my dad and his passion and his drive and his joy and his pain and the way in which all of those qualities continue to impact me today. And after the event was over, this young woman came up to me and she told me that her mother had died of cancer earlier that month. And she said that it was the first time that she had said it in public. And when I was writing this, I thought a lot about how I would try to describe that moment in words. But the truth is that you can't. It is just this beautiful and terrible connection between two strangers. But it meant something to that woman that I was there and that I had shared my story that day. And that was one of the first times that I knew that I was starting to do something with the things that I had been given. And so to clarify, that was far from the end of it. As valuable as that moment was, this fight is deeply institutional. The solution has to be intentional. It has to be funded. It has to be structural. And that is the biggest reason why I want to say thank you again, and what an honor it is to speak to all of you today, because I am endlessly grateful to be a part, for the opportunity to work alongside people that are so committed to a cause that is so close to my heart in a way that, again, is so tangible, is so committed, is so resolute. So I'm only 20. I'm new to giving speeches, everything like that. So I admit, full disclosure, I looked up a bit about how you're supposed to work through it. And I saw that speeches can sometimes end with a call to action. And I know that and means that it's a cliche, but I figure since I'm new to this, I will just go ahead and stay the course and just do it right as the outline suggests. And so right on time, here it is. So for me, I am using that voice and that value and that sense of self that my dad instilled in me. And I'm using that to refuse to stay silent about the reality of the treatment of Black communities and Black families and communities of color and families that are made up of people of color in our healthcare system. And so what I'm asking you to do is to look at the things that you have been given, even when it feels impossible in light of the things that have been taken away. And I'm asking you to do something with the things that you have been given, and continue to do the some things that you are doing with the things that you have been given, because it is our work and it is our job to make sure that we live in a world where Black families and families of color matter in our healthcare system and in our world. So I just want to thank you so much again. I know I've said it at least 3 times now, but I cannot reiterate enough how much of an honor it is to have been asked to speak today and to be involved in an organization that is truly one of the most powerful things that I have ever seen. So thank you so much to Susan and everyone who has guided my sister and I and let us be a part of this.
Okay. Wow. As always, you two are remarkable and wonderful. I remember that day together at ESPN. And as you're thinking, what am I going to have to share? I'm like, I don't need to say anything because they have put it out there just the way it is. And we will take on that challenge. We're going to continue to work with you. This is not new to us. We're not new kids on the block, like we've all said, but the challenge is important, and there is a lot more for us to do. And we're going to do that in memory of your dad. And I got to say, Stu and Kim, you all made beautiful, wonderful children, daughters, women who give me huge hope as to what this world really can be. And together, we are envisioning what that world can be, and we're going to make it happen. So thank you both so much. Speaking of the world, let's go ahead and play the Dear World video, which is another one. And anybody who cries easily, get ready.
I can't ever give up because I can't leave my daughters. The best thing I've ever done, the best thing I will ever do, is be a dad to Taelor and Sydni. I love you guys more than I will ever be able to express. You two are my heartbeat. I am standing on this stage here tonight because of you.
The hardest part of losing my dad has been times when I either thought I saw him somewhere and when there are things that I want to tell him.
I would like to thank him for liking me. For all the times that people haven't really liked me, he really liked my personality. He said, "You're my favorite person." And so to just be loved that way.
Isn't that a remarkable piece that says so much in one short minute? Again, thank you to all of the Scott family for being here with us today.